What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Ghouls Gaming and Tech channel. I'm going to make this video as quick as possible because there's a ton of settings that you can kind of mess around with, but I'm only here to give you guys the more essential ones and more so the pro settings that they always kind of tweak to make their gameplay seem a little bit better, or just to perform a little bit better and make us all believe that they're playing in bot lobbies. So basically take advantage of the settings that they put in this game to allow you guys to have the best chances of having positive KDs throughout this new Call of Duty game. Most of these settings pretty much apply to any Call of Duty game. Stay tuned, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and without any further ado, let's hop into it. All right, so once you start the game, just go to your settings. I'm in the multiplayer menu right now. You have some quick settings here. So what we want to do is go to controller first. Once you go to controller, you will see a few options here. So first thing you want to look at is your horizontal stick sensitivity. I think it comes default on 5 or 6. Make sure to change those two to 7, and then you will have your trigger effects somewhere on here, right here. So trigger effects, turn that to off. You don't really need to concern yourself with that. And then once you go back to your quick settings, and this will be in another sub menu as well, but as far as your graphics, we'll get to that, but you want to put your field of view on 120. Basically, the reason of this is, you can see on the diagram right here, you want to have as much area to cover, or area that you can see, as possible. You don't want to shrink that for any reason, because you want to see enemies coming as quick as they appear on your screen. So giving yourself more screen to look at is better for you to kind of assess what's going on and address whatever target you're dealing with. All right, so if you go back to controller right here and you look all the way down at dead zone inputs, most people don't really even touch these settings, but if you want to tweak them really quick, if you always wonder what they do but you don't want to go through a hassle of doing tons and tons of research on what settings might fit for you in particular, these are some general ones that you can adjust your dead zone inputs to. So as you can see, you can just literally screenshot this right here. Left stick minimum 3, left stick max 63, right stick minimum 0, right stick max 100, L2 button dead zone 0, R2 0. So again, this is a disclaimer for anybody watching this video. Your settings of what you play and what works for you in particular may be a little bit different from this. So if your settings are different, you're like, oh no, wait a minute, this kind of works for me, why is he changing it to this? By all means, go what works for you. But this is for the everyday gamer or the new community to Call of Duty. If you don't typically play this game, or the everyday gamer, you want to get a little bit better, or you want your KD to be a bit better and you're wondering what you can do, this video is for you. This is to give you some general pro settings, not just regular settings, pro settings, to help you have a better advantage when you're going into multiplayer, Warzone, all that good stuff. All right, so still under controller right here, if you click R1, and this, I'm on PlayStation right now if you're wondering, but these are settings applied to PlayStation, PC, Xbox, whatever. But if you go to aiming and you go to sensitivity multiplier, if you scroll all the way down to aiming down sight sensitivity multiplier, I changed that from 1 to 0.85, and then as far as the ADS sensitivity multiplier focus, you can put that on 0.85 if you want. All right, so if you scroll down a little bit and go to aiming advanced settings, this is where you're going to see a little bit more. So this is very good to know. Aiming down sight sensitivity transition timing, you want that to be instant. You don't want any kind of delay when it comes to that. And then aiming down sight response curve, you want that on dynamic. Make sure you put this on dynamic. It will give you the best scenario. So it says ideal for more experienced players. Like I said, these are pro settings. Fast starting movement that slows down to the aiming rate, reverse S-curve mapping. And then aim, if you press square to get more options here, you see aim response curve slope scale. Now I changed this to 0.90. It says set the effectiveness of selected aim response curve type. Put that on 0.90. All right, so last but not least, as far as the settings, you want to go to graphics. And once you click on graphics, you'll see the first tab is display. If your monitor, TV, whatever you're using allows you to have a 120 hertz refresh rate, this is basically the smoothness of your gaming experience, how well it's going to play. So if you have the toggle to turn this on, make sure to turn that on. So if you go over to the next tab, to quality, this is something that All pro players turn off motion blur. You don't need motion blur at all. It's just to give it more of a realistic kind of feel, like in real life if you're swaying left to right really quick, whatever the case is. Everything's not going to be in focus. Well, you're playing a Call of Duty game. You don't need motion blur. It's not real. You want to see things as clear as possible at all times. So turn motion blur off. So world motion blur off, weapon motion blur off, depth of field. You don't need depth of field either. See, you see the diagram right here? It's just blurring things out. There's no point in you having that on. So make sure to turn that off. And then depth of field. You don't need depth of field. Just let it all be clear all the time. Turn that off as well. It should come default off, but just to make sure these things are off. Fidelity cast, you can leave that on, and I just put my strength at 55. Nothing crazy. All right, and then the last thing on the graphics tab, if you go to view, like we spoke about earlier, field of view, put that at 120. That's the maxed out setting. Like I said, you can see more on your screen. Aim down sight field of view, you want that to be affected, okay? Affected. Just below that, weapon field of view, same concept. You have narrow, default, and wide. Narrow is what it sounds. It will shrink what you can see. We want that on wide so we can see as much as possible. When you're aiming down sights, when you're not aiming down sights, that's what you want, a wide field of view. And then again, this kind of goes with motion blur and kind of field of view pretty much combined, but basically your first person camera movement, I put mine on least, which is 50%. The note right here says it's lowering this settings value can help alleviate motion sickness for some players. Okay, so if you feel like the game is kind of, the screen is just jerking left and right, left and right, left and right, and it's just kind of too fast and it's kind of making you feel queasy because it's not like a stable image, you want to put this on the least amount possible, which is least, which is why I have it here. And one quick thing before we end the video, if you go back to controller and you scroll all the way down to controller vibration, I know we said earlier we're turning off trigger effect, but that doesn't change the vibration. So it turns off the trigger effect. It says deactivate all haptic feedback. So obviously you're having those haptics kind of taken away, but your controller is still gonna to vibrate, like it says, during specific gameplay events. So only reason you turn off the trigger effect and that shooting motion is because sometimes that can throw your aim off if you're shooting and your controller is vibrating. It kind of makes you kind of jerk your aim sometimes. So that's why you turn off trigger effect, but you still leave on controller vibration for just random stuff like explosions and stuff like that. So that's about it. But yes, like I said, I wanted to make this video as brief as possible to give you guys the best settings. Again, feel free to screenshot any segment of this video to apply those settings. Once you apply these, I guarantee you will see a significance in your performance and your gameplay. You'll feel a little bit more free as far as you being able to kind of maneuver the way you want and potentially improve your KD. So thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'm excited. Played the beta. Let's hop into it. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.